Hi YouTube, this is Raj here, and this is my introduction video to fragrances. It's something I'm interested in, and I thought I'd go ahead and post an introduction video and maybe post some reviews on some fragrances which I enjoy. But before I kind of go into any of that, I thought I'd kind of say hello. And this is actually my first YouTube video, so this is quite exciting. Hopefully everything goes well, fingers crossed. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself first of all. My name is Raj, and I live in London, I work in London, and I've been here my whole life, 24 years. And over the past year, I've kind of really got into fragrances to a level where I think I'm, getting into the sort of niche side of things. I have a good idea of what I like, what I don't like, and I'm just really enjoying different fragrances out there. And I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube recently, and I had no idea there was such a large fragrance community out there. There's loads of great people posting videos and giving their opinions and doing reviews, and it's great to see so many people out there with a passion for fragrances. Shout out to the likes of Robes08, Mark, Al on Street Scents. I quite like watching Julio, I think his name is, on New York Fragrance Blog. There's some really great reviewers out there. That's just to name 3 out of so many. So I thought I'd kind of go into why I like fragrances, how I got into it, where my sort of fragrance game is at the minute, if you want to call it that, and just tell you about things that I like. So basically, when I was sort of a teenager, I always wanted to smell good, and I was into the usual stuff, nothing special. We're talking Lynx body spray, Adidas body spray, Axe, I think it's known as sometimes, and so I just wanted to keep up with my mates. You're growing up, you want to try something new, you want to smell good, so you just pick up the cheapest thing possible. So that's kind of how I started off with things, and then I turned 18 and I was going off to university, so I thought I'd better get a few different bottles in, and I started off, as I think a lot of people probably do start off, at the designer fragrance end line of things. It's kind of the one which is in your face all the time, the most accessible and quite cheap as well. You can get some pretty good deals if you search around. So I started on Polo Blue, Polo Green as well. I was a fan of a couple of Paul Smith fragrances in there. Now what's interesting now is that I haven't bought those fragrances again, and I'm not a massive fan now. I think my taste has changed slightly, and I've kind of become a bit more accustomed to better quality fragrances. I used to wear a bit of Issey Miyake as well, which I still do today actually, and that's how things kind of kicked off for me, and it didn't really develop into anything more. I was just kind of into designer fragrances, and I was happy with 2 or 3 fragrances in my collection, and I would happily replace them. But then as I kind of hit, as I left university and I turned 21, 22, and I started, as I got a job, a bit of money in your pocket allowed me to explore new fragrances out there in the market. And I always used to read magazines like Esquire magazine, GQ magazine. In London we used to get some free magazines, and still do actually, such as Shortlist. If anybody in the UK or London knows about Shortlist magazine, they'll know that they often have fragrance, not reviews, but they kind of give a list of fragrances out there on the market and what is good for in what season, and they have a nice range. So I was kind of like developing my knowledge through reading these various magazines, and getting an idea of what's out there for me before I actually went out and bought anything, because I thought I wanted to do a bit of research, see what's out there, and then finally make a purchase of my own. So I was kind of influenced by those magazines as well, and you know, I was also influenced by my dad. He's into fragrances. He is not like he's not massively into fragrances. He has got to the stage where he has a very select collection, and his motto is basically, which he's kind of told me about, and something I believe in as well, is quality over quantity. And you know, spend a little bit more, but buy less. So I was kind of introduced to a few fragrances by him, and I've got one here actually. Something which I think is a really amazing fragrance. I'm not sure how well you can see it. This one is basically called, this is Sandringham by the Crown Perfumery Company, who were kind of established in the late 1800s, so around the Victorian ages. And this is just an amazing fragrance. You know, it's really potent. There's so much going on in there. You know, you've got your florals and woody scents. It's kind of like a bit of sweetness in there as well. And this fragrance kind of, it opened my eyes really to what could be out there, what's out there on the market. The Crown Perfumery Company is actually no longer in existence. They've been bought by Clive Christian, who are, you know, I think they produce like the world's most expensive perfume or something. So sadly that range is no longer in production, so if you can get your hands on some of those, I really recommend it. So basically that was kind of like, that was an introduction to high-end perfumery, quality ingredients, you know, design of the bottle as well. It's such a great design, and it just opened my eyes really as to what else is out there on the market. And also at the time, this is going back a couple of years now, I was kind of getting into the kind of traditional wet shaving, so using a shaving brush, using a double-edged razor and that sort of thing. And that kind of led me to websites which gave reviews on shaving products and such, and also gave reviews on fragrances, colognes and eau de toilettes and stuff like that. And a lot of companies who produce traditional shaving products actually do produce a lot of their fragrances as well. So while I was buying their shaving creams, I also thought, let me have a look at some of their fragrances they've got on offer. And some of the companies out there, especially some of the British ones, who are you know, founded in London again in the Victorian ages, produce, you know, classic colognes, really nicely presented. Some of them are okay. There's one brand which I particularly like called GOF Trumper, and I've got a bottle of them, theirs here, and this is one of the first colognes I bought myself, which was a little bit more than I usually spend. I understood that you pay a little bit more but you get quality, and this is exactly what you get here. A really great fragrance. I was kind of taken by the design of the bottle. It's a splash bottle, you get a little cap here, so there's something different, and I thought, when I smelt it, I thought, God, this is what the type of fragrance I want to be wearing, you know, something different, something with a real good emphasis on quality, and you can tell straight away, not even before you, I mean obviously just by looking at the bottle you just know it's going to be quality. So I just went in for that really, and I thought, I'm going to, you know, just start building a collection based on quality rather than designer fragrances which to my nose just smell very generic, and a lot of them just smell the same. I was kind of really drawn in by the elegance and the kind of understated elegance, if you like, of some of these fragrances and some of the designs. They weren't shouting out, the bottles weren't sort of outrageous designs, which kind of appealed to me as well. Things like Paco Rabanne 1 Million. The fragrance I think is quite nice, but the bottle, I just wasn't impressed with it. And I know, you know, you can say that it's all about the fragrance, that's the most important. But I think the design of the bottle also plays a big impact in people's decisions. And these are just a couple of fragrances which I think are really good in terms of design and quality of the product as well. And so I kind of wanted to do a bit more research into what other fragrances there are out there on the market. And as I mentioned earlier, I live in London, And London's a great place for shopping, especially for fragrances. It's a great place to shop for anything, to be honest, but especially for fragrances. You've got you've got quite a good selection of department stores there, the likes of John Lewis, Debenhams, House of Fraser, just to name a few. And they all stock your normal designer brands and higher end brands, you know, the likes of Tom Ford and Acqua di Parma, and all your normal designer brands as well. But one store which I really enjoy shopping in and really like is Liberty. And to those of you who don't know, Liberty is like an old department store. They specialise in sort of luxury products, kind of quirky products, sort of hard to find ones as well. And their fragrance department is no exception as well. They've got some seriously good niche fragrances over there. So I was just like, I was in love with the place when I first tried out these fragrances, because I walked in and a couple of brands I recognised, but there's so many others which I thought, man, what's this, what's this, what's this? I had no idea. So I was like, literally like a kid in a candy store. So I went in and was just really impressed. I was sniffing away, spritzing a few on my arms and my wrist until there was no more space left, and taking home some fragrance cards, and just kind of like getting into the niche side of things. And in Liberty they stock Edition de Parfum by Frédéric Malle, the full range. They also have, I think they're the only UK distributor of Le Labo. Le Labo have their own lab, or sort of little corner in Liberty where they make the fragrances for you, I believe. And like I bought some samples of Le Labo recently, and I really like them. Some of them quite potent, but really good. What else you got in there? You've got Diptyque, the whole range of Diptyque. You've got L'Artisan Parfumeur, Acqua di Parma. You've got Creed. Man, when I saw Creed, I was like, whoa, there are some incredible fragrances in here. Bois de Portugal I really like, Original Santal. They also stock Miller Harris, a British brand, which I really like actually, not just because it's British, but because there's some really interesting fragrances in there. And I've heard a lot about Miller Harris, but the brand's only been around since, I think, 2000, so quite new for a fragrance house, about 10-12 years. And they seem to have like got kind of obtained a really good reputation in quite a small amount of time, so that's quite a good house, which I like. What else have you got there? Carthusia, which is an old Italian brand, selling some really nice fragrances in there, which, you know, and this is what it's all about for me, just trying new things, fragrances and blends and combinations which you had never smelt before, because when you're a niche fragrance, I guess you're pushing the boundaries, you're combining scents and oils and aromatics, or whatever you call them, extracts, which in a combination which sounds crazy on paper, but it just seems to work so well. So yeah, I was just really impressed by like, for example, Musc Ravageur, Frédéric Malle. When I smelled that, I was like, what is going on here? That I have not smelled anything like it before. Some really incredible fragrances there. And this is what I really like, you know, just finding brands which I never heard of before and just exploring them. They also stock Serge Lutens as well, and I've got a sample on me now actually of Chergui, and I think it's called Un Bois Vanille or Un Bois de Vanille or something like that, a kind of vanilla based scent, which I really enjoy. And you know, one day I'm kind of at a stage where I'm quite satisfied with my fragrance collection. I've got about I don't know, maybe like 30 fragrances, which maybe to the guy on the street sounds like quite a lot, but when I've seen some of the videos of some YouTube guys out there, man, that is like nothing, you know, 30 is nothing. But I'm not looking really to add in any sort of great quantity really. Maybe the odd fragrance here and there I'll definitely pick up, and I'm definitely going to look out for some. But I'm quite satisfied with what I got. I'm just using up some of my fragrances which I've got at the minute, the two I've mentioned here. I'm also quite keen on a brand called Santa Maria Novella, which is an Italian brand, a really old Italian brand which was founded in like 16th century, 1612 I think it was actually. and they've got some incredible fragrances. I actually went into their store in London, which is in, I think it's called Piccadilly Arcade, which is in central London, in like the Mayfair area, and it's a small, quaint little shop. And I'd heard of Santa Maria Novella before, but I didn't realise that they had a shop in London. So I happened to be in the area, and I was walking past, and I saw this little shop, and it said Santa Maria Novella. So I walked in, a nice little quaint shop, quite small, but it's packed full of colognes, shaving products, aftershave balms, soaps, which they specialise in high quality soaps. The products aren't cheap, but the minute you smell them, you know that you're getting really good quality. There's a fragrance which I might think about doing a review on, called Melograno, which means, I think, means pomegranate. That's a really interesting fragrance. It's a unisex fragrance, and when I read the notes for it, I thought, this is definitely not something for me, but it was just incredible to smell something like that. And that's what, again, that goes back to what I was saying before. It's what I love, you know, finding fragrance houses, brands which I never heard of before, which are maybe a little bit hard to find. And yeah, so that's basically, that's my intro video. I'm going to be probably, I don't know what fragrances I'll be reviewing soon. I'll think about it. I probably will do that Santa Maria Novella one, pomegranate. I'm a big fan of that. And yeah, that's how it is. I mean, in terms of fragrances which I'm kind of got in my rotation at the minute, I'm a big fan of some Jo Malone fragrances, Tom Ford. I recently bought Black Orchid, and it's the first fragrance I bought which is, as far as I can see, is definitely marketed at women and is a women's fragrance. But I think a man can pull it off, definitely. I think I smelt that fragrance when I was in Ireland a few years ago, up in Dublin, in the department store there, and it was stocked in the men's section. So I thought, okay, Black Orchid, Tom Ford, it's a men's fragrance. And then when I got home, I did a little bit of research and found out that it was actually a women's fragrance, but happened to be quite popular with the guys. So that's one fragrance which I've really got into recently, and I've also been purchasing some fragrance samples off the internet. Serge Lutens, which I'm a massive fan of. Some Tom Ford fragrances from his private blend. I'm actually wearing Tobacco Vanille today, which I'm really impressed by. I really like that. It's really strong. I mean, I've only literally dabbed on a little bit on my chest, and that was in the morning, and I can still smell it now, and it's, you know, it's almost about 1 o'clock now, so it's going strong. I've also got into by Kilian. What's the name? Back to Black. I like that. That is an amazing fragrance. The tobacco, it's kind of like, I suppose it's kind of similar to Tobacco Vanille in the sense that you've got that tobacco scent in there, followed by a sweetness, but this comes in the form of honey, which the dry down is just, or the last few hours of the fragrance is just amazing. I love it. I've never smelled anything like it. The only problem is it is expensive, so I don't know if I'm going to buy a fragrance, you know, £145 I think it is for a 50ml. So I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But this is what it's all about. You know, trying new fragrances. I'm definitely not going to go crazy and buy, you know, tens and hundreds of fragrances. I think I'd like to add to my collection slowly but surely. And there you go. That's my introduction video. Thanks for watching. And I think I'm going to be posting a few review videos soon, so look out for those. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.